People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Moons. They are where you go. But which one should you go to? There's a lot of choices after all, 11 in fact. Which of these moons is most deserving of your time? This is a question I've had for a long time. And funnily enough, it's also a question whose answer has changed multiple times since I originally started making this video 3 months ago. Out of respect for your time, and if you're not interested in the math, here is a chart I've come up with showing the expected scrap earning for each moon. That's right, I beat you to it, let me save you some time, commenters. For the 10% of people who clicked on this video and want to see a source for my argument, buckle up. We're about to go on a wild ride. To answer that literally, I think the definition is something like a natural satellite of a celestial body, or something like that. In our case though, I care more about what makes a moon worth going to in the hit game Lethal Company. The most important stat for this video is how much loot is available on a given moon, specifically what is the average expected value of loot for each trip you take to the moon. Second, how easy is it to get the loot from a given moon? What use is a moon with a potential $1 billion behind it if you're guaranteed to die every single time you try to access it? This factor comprises both how hard it is to find the scrap in the first place, for example, a bigger versus a smaller map, and how many enemies, and also what type of enemies, will attempt to prevent you from doing so. Lastly, I want to know any specific bonuses you can get from going to specific moons. Keep this in mind, as it won't really come up until later in the video, but you'll know it when you see it. So, now that we know what we're looking for, how do we determine the average value of any given moon? Well, if you've seen my previous video, you might already know. It's math time. Step 1. I type out the loot spawn chart from the wiki into Google Sheets. With this, you can do a quick and dirty calculation to find the average value of any item by simply averaging the value of the items. This is great because it's quick, but it's not so great because it's wrong. Uh-oh, I think it's... So, the reason that method of finding an average is wrong is that it doesn't take into account an item's chance of spawning. Let's look at a hypothetical. This moon is Roadside's Attraction. It's a dump, what did you expect? On this moon, 10 different items can spawn, conveniently named items 1 to 10, and each item has a fixed value of 1 times its name. Assuming each item has the same chance of spawning, we get an average item value of 5.5 for the moon, which is actually correct. But now let's throw a wrench into our plans and introduce an item 11. This item is a banger.
And I know bangers. I know bangers.
It has a fixed value of 999,999. Impressive. But since it's so expensive, we need to make it rare. Let's give it a 0.00001% chance to spawn, and adjust item 10 spawn rate by 0.00001%. That'll keep everything at a nice clean 100%. Now, if we do our average calculation, we will find the average item value on this moon is 90,914. This sounds great, except for the fact you will never find item 11. To fix this, we have to factor in the chance of each item spawning, which will give us a weighted value. To do this, we multiply each item's value by its chance to spawn, and then sum up all the items' values weighted together. Doing this, we'll see that Roadside's Attraction's expected loot value per item is 5.5009999. It basically hasn't changed at all, because the spawn chance for item 11 is so ridiculously low. Alright, now that we know how to actually find what we want to know, this tangent is over. So all that's left to do here is create a spreadsheet containing all the information necessary for each planet and calculate the values. Luckily, I've already done this. Twice actually, because the loot tables changed in version 50. For my own sake, I'm going to round all the values to the nearest whole number, but I'll have the longer number on screen. Starting with experimentation, or EXP for short, each trip has an expected value of 301 per trip, an expected return of 904 per 3 landings, and each individual item has a weighted value of 32. That latter term will be very important for the later moon. Moving on, Assurance, or for short, it says ASS. Assurance has an expected value of 536, an expected return of 1,608 per 3 landings, and a weighted item average of around 38. Vow has a worse expected value of 550, an expected return of 1,546 per 3 landings, and a weighted item average, let's shorten that to a WIA of around 40. Offense, or Off for short, has an expected value of 579, an expected return of 1,737 per 3 landings, and a WIA of around 37. March, or Mar for short, has an expected value of 549, an expected return of 1,648 per 3 trips, and a WIA of 38. To me, these numbers are very interesting, because I die to the Giants on March a lot, and I'm only averaging about $40 more than if I just went to Assurance. Adamance, or ADA for short, has an expected value of 669, an expected return of 2,007 per 3 trips, and a WIA of 39. This moon is notable as it's the only free moon to have significantly more loot on average than Assurance. And for any wise guys out there, the last free moon is Gordian, or Gore for short. There is no expected scrap value here, but you can squeeze up to $15 out of this moon if you play your cards right. That's all the free moons taken care of. And I will quickly mention that for all the paid moons, I will be subtracting the cost to go to the moon from the expected return. Starting off strong with Embryon, or M for short. This one's named after a Pokemon, so it has to be good.
Oh no!
Embryon has a cost to go to of 150, an expected value of 489, an expected return of 1,318, and a WIA of 38. Rend, or Ren, has a cost of 550, an expected value of 1,224, an expected return of 3,121, and a WIA of 57. I'll come back to this moon later, but this is the second highest WIA in the game, which is a very important factor to keep in mind. Up next, Dine, or Din, has a cost of 600, an expected value of 1,256, an expected return of 3,167, and a WIA of 53. Titan, or for short, it says Tight. Titan has a cost of 700, an expected value of 1,489, an expected return of 3,768 per 3 trips, and a WIA of 50. And lastly, Artifice, or Art for short, has a cost of 1,500, an expected value of 2,004, an expected return of 4,512 per 3 trips, and the highest WIA value of 59. Well, there we go. That's every moon analyzed. Let me get all that information to a couple of charts. This chart shows the expected value available on each individual moon, both per trip and 3-trip rotation. And this chart shows the weighted item average of each moon. Now is a great time to finally explain why I think this stat is so important. Let's focus on our other chart for a second. All of these expected values are assuming you get every single item out of the facility. While this is definitely achievable on some of the smaller moons, as the moons start to get more loot, they also get more spacious on the inside. Also, more things want to kill you. I think that's also an important little note to add in as well. So while Titan has on average about $1,500 of scrap lying around, it also has the largest interior of any moon, and also the second most items of any moon, meaning it's significantly harder to find every item to begin with, let alone get them all out. Comparing Titan to Rend for a moment, Rend has a significantly higher weighted item average, and also a significantly smaller interior size. Let's just assume for a second that you and your friends can usually recover 12 items each time you go into the facility. Getting 12 items out of Rend will net you on average $683, and doing so 3 times will net you $2,049. On Titan, however, getting 12 items out will net you on average $606, or $1,818 after 3 trips. To me, this means there is a fair argument for Rend being a better location than Titan, as long as you typically get around 18 items or less out of the facility. So what do I think the biggest takeaways are from all this? Number 1, for the free moons, picking anything other than experimentation will significantly increase the amount of money you walk away with. Easy and intermediate moons both have very similar loot values, so if the one you want to go to has a weather effect, you don't really lose much by swapping to a different one. And while Adamance is the best of the free moons, I don't think it's by a significant enough amount to justify the risk for a lot of players. Number 2, if you haven't tried Rend because it's not the most expensive map, give it a try. And 3, you can actually expect to gain more money paying to go to either Rend or Titan for a single trip than if you went to the most lucrative free moon, Adamance. Dine and Artifice aren't quite so lucky, needing at least a second trip to start paying for themselves. Suppose now it's time to address the forest giant in the room. It's a lot easier to get loot out of some of these maps than others. Before I start, please keep in mind that I'll be basing my thoughts on difficulty based upon my own experiences in the game, and your thoughts might differ. Please feel free to share your own opinions in the comments. Maybe you guys know some tricks that I don't, which can make certain moons a lot easier, and that information can be very useful when picking a moon. And while you're down there, maybe like and subscribe. With that being said, I think the easiest method for me to display my thoughts is in a tier list. Here's the list for difficulty I've come up with. If you're interested in my thought process, I've uploaded an unlisted video showing me making this tier list, and I'll have that in both the description and hopefully somewhere on screen if I can figure out how to do that. So to wrap things up, here's a list showing what I think the risk level of every single moon is, alongside the reward per trip for each moon. Well, look at that. We've accomplished what we set out to do, and there are no loose ends left. Man, I really wish I didn't open this can of worms. Alright. On some moons, you may come across beehives, which can be brought back to your ship for extra scrap. If you're having trouble with this, a strategy I like to do is walk up and bait the bees back a bit before looping around and grabbing the hive while sprinting. When your stamina gets low, drop the hive and repeat until you've placed the hive somewhere convenient, like the railing on the ship. The problem for us is that these bees add extra value to a moon in a way that's difficult to calculate. Let's take a look at experimentation for a second. According to the wiki, circuit bees have a 14.86% chance of spawning. That's all well and good, but how do you figure out how much to add on average for the chance of there being bees on a moon? Experimentation has a max daytime power of 5, meaning 5 daytime entities can spawn in total, and each one has a power of 1. This leaves us with a limited number of outcomes possible. Let me take you down the rabbit hole. Let's say you land on experimentation and there are no beehives whatsoever. Many such cases. This would mean that when spawning daytime entities, the game checked what to spawn 5 times, and each time hit the 85.14% no hive spawn chance. This can be written as 85.14% to the power of 5, and we can see that this outcome has a 45% chance of happening. The next possibility is that one of the 5 daytime power slots is a beehive, and the rest aren't. The chance for this can be calculated as 85.14% to the power of 4, multiplied by 14.86%, all together multiplied by 5. Or about 39% of the time. This is because 4 of the chances must roll a no, 1 must roll a yes, and there are 5 different ways this can happen. I'll speed through the rest because they will all be done the same way. 2 hives should spawn about 13% of the time, 3 hives should spawn about 2% of the time, 4 hives should spawn about 0.2% of the time, and 5 hives should spawn about 0.007% of the time. Very common. All of these chances add up to 99.9999, it's pretty much 100%. This means we have calculated every possible outcome successfully. The only problem I have is this feels wrong to me. I swear, more often than not, experimentation does not have a beehive, but the numbers say that it should. I decided to test my theory 10 times, and granted, this was way too small of a sample size to get any conclusive data. I found over the course of 10 drops, I only found a single hive twice, and every other time found no beehives. All of this is to say, I have no clue how beehive spawning works if it's not like this, and it really feels like it's not like this. Then you try to go look up on the wiki and it doesn't say anything, and you get to the daylight spawning calculation page and...
What in the goddamn?
So where does this leave us? Bees can make a significant difference in the loot available on a moon. But since I can't figure out exactly how they work, the best I can do is make it clear which moons have bees and the chance for there to be bees on those moons. At least that is the last variable we have to worry about adding value to a moon. The Nutcracker is a unique entity in the way that killing it rewards the player with a tangible benefit. It gives you the shotgun. Setting aside the power increase the shotgun gives you, being able to turn brackens into Swiss cheese for instance, what's important for this video is shotguns can be exchanged at your local retailer just like any other piece of scrap. Specifically, each shotgun has a value between 30 and 90 with an average price of 60. This means for every Nutcracker you kill, you can squeeze a little more loot out of an otherwise fixed amount. This is incredibly important for one moon in particular. You know, the one that already has the second highest value for its items on average. The common frequency of Nutcrackers on Rend, combined with its already extremely high weighted item average, makes it a much better moon than you might originally expect. Just by killing a single Nutcracker, you can expect to get more loot on average from 3 trips to Rend compared to 3 trips to Dine. Now of course, Nutcrackers can spawn on other maps, but they have an extremely high spawn chance on Rend at 25.91%, which is over double Titan's 12.59%. Nutcrackers also only have a power level of 1, which is a good thing for us, as it means they are common, and up to 10 Nutcrackers can spawn per trip to a moon. I guess we should talk about the Nutcracker's new counterpart as well. The Butler has a power level of 2 and a max spawn of 7, meaning you have less potential to extract value from them compared to the Nutcracker's power of 1 and spawn cap of 10. This is offset on Dine with their extreme 43.88% spawn rate, However, in my opinion, they are a far worse asset than the Nutcrackers. The first reason for this is their knife is worth significantly less on average, having a fixed value of 35. This means for every Nutcracker you kill, on average you will bring home 25 more compared to killing a Butler. The second and far more important aspect of Butlers is they get significantly more annoying once they die. Upon game ending a Butler, they explode into a horde of Hornets, which will persist in that facility for the remainder of the day. So in order to get any extra value from these guys, you need to purposely make the rest of the mission harder, or wait and try to kill them all near the end. It's possible, and I'm sure players better than me can pull it off consistently, but for my money, it's Rend all the way. And that, for real, was everything I wanted to say. To recap, here are the charts I came up with from this investigation. I'd like to thank anyone who's made it this far into the video and apologize for the lack of uploads recently. I love making videos for you gamers, but right now I don't have a huge amount of free time. I originally was going to make this video just based upon the 3 snow moons, but I decided it would be better to take the time and make a video that I think more people will enjoy. I've been the Roadside Attraction, thanks for watching.